John Dodson. The book is called The Unarmed Truth, My Fight to Blow the Whistle and Expose Fast and Furious, the story the ATF doesn't want you to know. John Dodson. Good morning, John Dodson.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for joining us. What was the idea of...
Thank you for having me.
You got it. What was the idea of Fast and Furious?
Well, the idea or the objective behind it was to take down a cartel. And somehow thinking that to be the end, the means was designed to essentially facilitate the trafficking of large amounts of semi-automatic assault rifles or AK variants and allow them to be trafficked to the most violent criminal organization, that U.S. law enforcement's ever encountered.
Right, and then what did they do? They gave them the guns, and then they put a secret GPS tracking device on it? How were they going to track these guns?
Well, sir, there was one GPS tracker employed on two separate operations, but it's just a very small part of the story, and that was on one rifle. The other, or two rifles actually, the other 2,500, had no such tracking devices on them. When they say tracking, what they mean is we're going to, after we facilitate the gun dealers to make these sales, we're going to observe the straw purchasers buy them. Then we're just going to kind of do nothing and wait for them to turn up in crimes on both sides of the border and be traced, and then count that statistic that they were traced.
Sounds like a really bad...
There's no tracking in between.
It sounds like a really, really bad plan from the word go. Whose idea was this?
Well, sir, I don't know, and I think that's one of the reasons behind writing the book is to let people know that that still hasn't been answered. There's still a lot of questions out there that hasn't been answered, and this is still ongoing. No one has ultimately got to that. If there is one person, I don't even know. I think it's more of a shift in mindset, in mentality for modern day law enforcement to go away from protecting and serving to go back to a new model of make headlines, make big cases.
Yeah. Where were you when all of this was going on, and how did you find out about all of this?
Well, I was transferred to Phoenix in 2009 to be a part of the Group 7 strike force, which was responsible for working the Fast and Furious investigation. And that first month in December to early January, I was getting read in on the case and brought up to speed on things. And then as soon as we went operational in January, I could see the flaws immediately and started trying to address these with my supervisors.
January of 2009?
2010.
2010. Okay. So you were there. Were you in charge or involved in actually sending the guns across the border?
Well, I was not in charge, sir, but I was a part of the group that was working the case, and our whole group was devoted to working this one case. And what we would do is we knew that these individuals, what we call straw purchasers, dealers who would know these people are straw purchasers, like they're buying 5, 10, 15 of the same AK variant. They're paying in cash. We know, they don't look like they have the means to afford this kind of thing. We're not going to sell to them anymore. But then ATF says, no, go ahead and make the sales. We have this covered. So then we're documenting all the sales that the FFLs would normally make to these people. We're allowing them to be made, and then we're just waiting for them to turn up in crimes in Mexico. And this happens sometimes the next day or 2 days later. One of these firearms that we just watched on Monday is recovered in a homicide where 8 people were killed in Mexico on Wednesday.
Sounds like a gun show in America where gun control advocates talk about straw purchasers. They sell a gun and it shows up in a local crime the next day.
Well, right. That's what a straw purchaser is. Someone who purchases a firearm that's not for them. Their intention is not to own it, but merely to transfer it to someone else off the record.
Right. So the same problems that the gun control advocates talk about in this country, you saw happening in this government program, trying to sell guns to people or just sell them on the open market. But then we all knew they were ultimately going to the bad guy.
Right. Well, it's similar, yes, sir. And like I say, it's not that they were the straw purchasers weren't trying to sell them on the open market. The investigation, they had orders essentially to fill from their cartel or criminal organization contacts. They knew, they're all weapons of choice. They knew exactly what they wanted and how many of them that they were to deliver.
Brian Terry. Who is Brian Terry?
Well, Brian Terry was a Border Patrol agent that worked out of here in Arizona, and he was killed in a firefight with a RIP crew in December of 2010, just outside of Rio Rico in a place called Peck Canyon, Arizona. And 2 of the firearms recovered from the scene of his murder traced directly back to the Fast and Furious case.
Where's the Fast and Furious case now? It's been exposed. It's now they don't do that anymore, correct?
Well, that's what they say, yes, sir. But like I say, part of the problem is this mindset. So even though potentially, Fast and Furious has stopped, if this mindset is continuing, this new model, this new method of law enforcement, it's only being applied in other investigations.
Yeah. Lots have been made. If this is an Obama plan or his administration, or this was first started in the Bush administration. What can you know about that?
Well, so I can't tell you exactly when this shift changes or when it takes effect. I know I've heard that argument a lot, and it's specifically referring to a case called Wide Receiver, which was worked out of Arizona as well. And that happened before I got here, but my understanding of it comes primarily from a couple of people that were involved with it, as well as the OIG report that was released. And in Wide Receiver, they did facilitate the trafficking, but the intent was always to interdict the firearms, not let them fall into the hands of the criminal element. Now, sometimes a load or 2 got away from them, or they had scheduled for the Mexican authorities to take it off as soon as it crossed the border, and those Mexican authorities were unable to do so. So that's more, you hear this term a botched sting operation or something like that. That was more of a botched situation. Fast and Furious wasn't botched at all. We worked it exactly the way we were told to, the way it was designed to, and it wasn't botched. The plan was to allow these firearms to go, and that wasn't the case in Wide Receiver, and I think that's the difference. The
book is called The Unarmed Truth, My Fight to Blow the Whistle and Expose Fast and Furious. John Dodson, thank you for your time. Good luck with the book.
Thank you, sir.
You got it. 7:30 here on the Big 550 KTRS.
Hi, this is Andy.